Hello and welcome back, future scientists. My name is Mr. K. I'm here with Mississippi Public Broadcasting, and I've got another great lesson for y'all today. We're going to talk about cells a little bit more, and specifically the organelles inside of them, but instead of just trying to memorize all of their jobs, we're going to relate it to something that you already know a lot about. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take organelles and we're going to pretend like it's your city. So today we're going to make an analogy in between where you live and a cell, and you're going to be surprised at how all of the similarities really line up here. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of reviewing. Remember that cells are the basic unit of life. When it comes to living things, you can't get any smaller than a cell. Now inside of cells are little organs. Those little organs are called organelles. And just like your body has organs and each organ has a specific job it has to do, these cells have organelles and each organelle has a specific job that it has to do. So in this situation, we're going to pretend like your cell is the city that you live in. We're going to take all of the people and all of the buildings and factories and compare them to things inside of the cell, and that's going to make this stuff a lot easier to remember because cellular biology is super tough. So let's go ahead and hop into and find some more analogies here. Okay, the first one I wanted to talk about is the cell membrane. Let's talk about what the cell membrane does. Remember that it is selectively permeable, which means it controls what comes into and out of the cell, okay? It doesn't want to let everything into it because that can be kind of dangerous. So it selects what comes into and what comes out of it. It's made up of a certain type of fat called a phospholipid, which we'll talk more about in the future. So in this situation, if your city is a cell, then what would be the cell membrane? I think a good analogy here is the city limits. Imagine you're driving into your town and it might say, welcome to Madison, or welcome to Jackson, or welcome wherever city you're from. Well, the same way that once you cross that threshold, you're now in the city, that's kind of what's going on here. The cell membrane is where a city ends or where a cell starts, okay? So the cell membrane is a lot like the city limits where you live. All right, what's the next one that we're looking at today? So let's talk about the cytoplasm. What is cytoplasm? It's this jelly-like fluid inside of the cell. It keeps the cell inflated. We don't want it to be deflated like a balloon with no air in it, okay? So if the cytoplasm fills up the cell, what fills up your city? Well, your city is filled up with life and air and water, people going about and doing their daily lives. So in the same way that the cytoplasm fills the cell up, so too does the people and air and water fill up the city that you live in. What else do I have here? Okay, let's take a second and talk about the nucleus. Remember that the nucleus is kind of like the control center of the cell. It regulates DNA and RNA and all of the cell's actions, okay? I think the nucleus for a city would be a lot like City Hall. Really important decisions get made in City Hall. The decisions that kind of control what the city does all happen there in City Hall. So the same way that the City Hall decides what your city does, the nucleus decides what your cells do, okay? I've got a couple more for y'all, so just hang in there with me. Okay, next up is the nuclear envelope. Remember me talking about the cell membrane just a couple seconds ago and how it's selectively permeable? It only lets certain things into and out of the cell. Well, the nucleus kind of has its own cell membrane, and it's known as the nuclear envelope. We only let certain things into and out of the nucleus, and we really want to try to protect that DNA inside of the nucleus, so we can't just let anything walk in and out of there, okay? In this situation, I think that the nuclear envelope is a lot like the doors of City Hall. Imagine you're going into a really important government building. Sometimes they have you walk past like a metal detector, or they pat you down to make sure you're safe to come inside of the building. The same thing's going on here. The nuclear envelope is dictating or determining what gets to come into the nucleus. I got one more talking about the nucleus. This one's known as the nucleolus, okay? Inside of the nucleus is this small inner chamber. It's called the nucleolus. The nucleolus is an organelle that makes ribosomes, and hopefully by now we're remembering that ribosomes make protein. Okay, so if you wanted to find the nucleolus, you would look inside of the nucleus. Well, who would you find inside of City Hall? Well, you might find the mayor. So just like the nucleolus can be found inside of the nucleus, so too can the mayor be found inside of City Hall. Okay? The next one is DNA. Remember, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. The function of DNA is it's holding all the genetic material for your cell. And we use DNA to make proteins, which are really, really important. Okay? So the DNA is inside of the nucleus. Well, inside of the City Hall, you might find the laws or the city code. And everyone who lives inside of the city has to follow those laws. The same thing's going on here. Everything inside of the cell has to follow the directions of the DNA. So these two are very similar. The next one I have is the endoplasmic reticulum. Remember, there's two types of endoplasmic reticulum. You can have rough ER or smooth ER. And a good way to abbreviate endoplasmic reticulum is just the ER. What does the endoplasmic reticulum do? It's the transportation route for proteins. So if something's trying to get around the cell, it uses the endoplasmic reticulum. It's a lot like the roads and sidewalks inside of your city. If you're going to a store or going to school, you probably were on a road or a sidewalk at some point. So just the same way that you use a road or a sidewalk to get around your city, proteins are using the endoplasmic reticulum to get around the cell. I got one more. Okay, so we're going to talk about ribosomes. What do ribosomes do? They make proteins. Let's remember that ribosomes are in charge of making something. So to me, ribosomes are a lot like the restaurants, factories, or builders inside of your city. If something has to get built, someone's got to do it. The same thing's going on here. Ribosomes are in charge of making something. Okay, they're specifically making proteins. Y'all, so we're going to continue this in the next unit. I hope these analogies are kind of making sense and helping you remember what's going on. Y'all are doing great work, and this is super difficult stuff to remember. So make sure you give the work that y'all do today your best effort, and I hope everybody has a great day.